Hey there, folks. If you're enjoying these stories about ancient Egypt, don't forget to follow our channel so you won't miss this video or any of the upcoming ones. We'd really appreciate your support, so please subscribe, like, and drop a comment below. It helps us a lot, honestly. Hatshepsut, the Queen of Inspiration, Egypt, full of mysteries and with a history that stretches back thousands of years. This enchanting land takes us back to a glorious past, where more than 300 pharaohs ruled the mightiest empire of their time. But among them, there was one who stood out. Her reign was marked by peace, prosperity, and a wave of artistic and architectural renewal. That pharaoh was Hatshepsut, and unlike the rest, she was a woman. She was the only female pharaoh who ruled Egypt for 22 years. Her time on the throne became a source of inspiration for women, making her one of the greatest rulers of ancient Egypt. But how did a woman rise to the highest position in an empire dominated by men? Hatshepsut didn't just inherit power, she seized it. Through a political coup, she took over the throne, which was already occupied, and set out to become Egypt's one and only ruler. In 2007, Egypt's Secretary-General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities made a shocking announcement. He had identified Hatshepsut's mummy. But many scholars were skeptical, questioning the evidence and doubting whether the remains truly belonged to her. So why does Hatshepsut continue to fascinate us so much? Experts agree she was one of the most remarkable rulers of the ancient world, yet she's far less known than other pharaohs. To understand why, we have to go back to the 19th century, when Europe was swept by a craze for Egyptology. Thanks to Jean-François Champollion, the man who cracked the code of hieroglyphs, the pharaohs began to speak again. During his travels, he came across the grand temple of Der el-Bahari, buried under desert sands. What shocked him most wasn't just the beauty of the inscriptions, but that the ruler was sometimes referred to in the feminine form. The idea that this pharaoh was a woman baffled him. That woman was, of course, Hatshepsut. Over the years, excavations revealed more and more about her. Scenes carved on the temple walls told stories of her divine birth. One inscription even describes how the god Amun came to her mother in a dream, impregnating her with a child destined to rule. This bold claim wasn't just myth-making, it was a way of legitimizing her reign as divinely ordained. But Hatshepsut's reign wasn't just about stories, it was about achievements. Archaeologists from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, working in the 1920s, discovered a massive pit outside her temple filled with broken statues of her. Someone, long after her death, had deliberately tried to erase her from history, smashing her images, gouging out her eyes and chiseling her name off the walls. Why? Because for many, Hatshepsut's reign was controversial. She wasn't supposed to be pharaoh. She was the daughter of Thutmose I, married to her half-brother Thutmose II. When he died young, the throne should have gone to his son, Thutmose III, but the boy was just a child, too young to rule. So Hatshepsut stepped in as regent, then slowly took power for herself, sidelining the rightful heir. She didn't just stop there. She launched ambitious building projects, erected towering obelisks at Karnak, and portrayed herself in statues not as a queen but as a full-fledged pharaoh, sometimes even with the false beard of kingship. To legitimize her rule, she staged religious ceremonies where the priests declared that Amun himself had chosen her to be king. For some, this was a brilliant act of political genius. For others, it was a crime against tradition. And when Thutmose III finally grew up and took full power, evidence suggests he, or those loyal to him, ordered her memory erased, systematically destroying her statues and inscriptions. Yet despite all efforts to erase her, Hatshepsut's legacy still survives. She was not just a queen, she was a king in every sense of the word, a woman who dared to rule in a man's world and change the story of ancient Egypt forever. We had to go to the Metropolitan Museum to see the statues of Hatshepsut more clearly. But here's the problem. Every face looked different, so what did she really look like? From the early statues of her reign, Hatshepsut's features seemed to resemble her father's. Her face was painted yellow, the traditional colour used for women in Egyptian art, while men were usually painted in a reddish tone. The statues show a calm expression, almond-shaped eyes and high arched eyebrows, giving her a strong, commanding presence. But the real surprise is how her image changed over time. At first she was happy to be shown as both a woman and a pharaoh, but little by little her feminine traits started to fade from the artwork. Her statues gradually shifted toward a more masculine look, almost as if she was transforming inside a cocoon, shedding her female image and taking on a male identity. In Egyptian history, female pharaohs were extremely rare. Out of around 345 rulers across 3,000 years, only 5 were women. Hatshepsut was the only one to rule for such a long time, 22 years. So why did she change her image like that? One answer lies in the way pharaohs proved their power, through monuments. Building temples and massive structures wasn't just about glory, it was seen as proof that the gods supported their rule. Hatshepsut spent much of her reign repairing, restoring and expanding what her ancestors had left behind. This gave her legitimacy as a rightful pharaoh. She entrusted her architect Senenmut with her greatest project, her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, known as the Temple of a Million Years. This masterpiece of New Kingdom architecture was designed to tell the story of her reign in detail and glorify her as a ruler. Today it's still one of the most visited temples in Egypt. The temple is massive, 25 meters tall, 105 meters wide, and built into the cliffs with terraces, colonnades and long ramps surrounded by gardens. It was designed to host grand religious processions in honor of Amun. Across the river, directly opposite the temple, stood Karnak, the main sanctuary of Amun. Hatshepsut didn't just focus on her own temple, she also redesigned parts of Karnak. She was ambitious, leaving her mark everywhere. Her building program was enormous, employing tens of thousands of workers. In fact, she built more monuments than almost any pharaoh before her, second only to Ramses II. One of her projects, the Speos Artemidos, carved into the rock, contains a long inscription across 22 columns. In it, she declares her power with words that read almost like a manifesto of faith. I restored what was ruined, even what had been destroyed in the time of the Hyksos. Now I sit upon the throne of the sun, just as it was foretold. I come as Horus, the sun god, breathing fire against my enemies. Never again will such crimes be repeated. As the sun rises, its rays shine on my body, and my falcon soars above the palaces of princes forever. Hatshepsut made it clear that she ruled by divine right. Even one of the obelisks she erected at Karnak carried a message reinforcing her authority, declaring that all foreign lands were subject to her. But Hatshepsut didn't rule alone. She relied on trusted allies. The most prominent among them was Senenmut, her architect and tutor to her only daughter, Neferura. He held more than 90 titles, a sign of his extraordinary influence. He was unmarried, childless, and clearly devoted to Hatshepsut. Some even suggest that he was more than just her advisor, that he might have been her lover. Evidence from his tomb, built close to her temple, hints at their special relationship. In ancient Egypt, being buried near the pharaoh was an immense honor. His tomb inscriptions also speak of his loyalty to her. Whether their bond was political, personal, or both, Senenmut was the closest man to the queen. Rumors swirled about their relationship, but what's clear is that he was her strongest supporter. But if Senenmut was so loyal, then who was responsible for trying to erase Hatshepsut's memory from history? To find out, we need to fast forward to the late 19th century. At that time, the French-managed antiquities department in Cairo realized that artifacts bearing the names of pharaohs were being sold in the antiquities market. Yet they weren't being found in the tombs they supposedly came from. Suspicious, a young assistant named Heinrich Bruch traveled to Luxor to investigate. There he discovered that 3 brothers had found a hidden royal cache and were secretly selling treasures from it. When Brugsch followed the trail, he uncovered a tomb packed with royal mummies, most still resting in their coffins. Well, that brings us to the end of our journey for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed learning about Hatshepsut's incredible story. Don't forget to follow the channel for more tales from ancient Egypt, and be sure to watch our future videos. If you liked this one, please subscribe.